Hello and welcome to yet another great episode of the Inspiring Ideas podcast. Today's guest is Marini. So he is on a mission to make data reliable, discoverable, and ready to power analytics. So he focuses on data integration, warehouse design, analytics, and reporting. He is also the host of the Data Project, a podcast to bridge the gap between data experts and data users and find efficient ways to work with data. He's got tons of things that he can help out with you. And without further ado, let's welcome Marini. How are you today?
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm good. Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Lourdes, again. So let's actually start the episode with your introduction.
Sure. Yeah, so I suppose, it's always a hard question when people ask me, who are you, right? Because I've done quite a few different things. So if you accept the concept that we associate ourselves with what we do, then I have to tell you what I've done. and so my path is a little bit non-linear, like most paths in real life. I started out as an information engineer. I've studied telecommunication systems and satellites in particular, working on minimizing the noise and the interference and maximizing the signal. So getting that maximum information flow to go from a system A to system B, whatever the systems are. So really high level theoretical. And then I applied that knowledge in the context of a research project for the European Union that was led by the German Aerospace Agency. I then moved to Australia. A bit of an adventure there. The plan wasn't to stay that long. It was really just a gap year. You can think of it that way. But myself and my now wife ended up loving Sydney. We were lucky to find a way to stay, and so so that my next step there was a research project at the University of Sydney, working on machine learning, in particular reinforcement learning, to solve really complicated problems in terms of how much computational power you have to throw at the problem to solve, to find a solution. And there's for non-technical people, this is a class of problems in mathematics that have lots of real world examples. For example, if I tell you there's a library, the library behind me, there's a limited number of files or books, and you have to find the optimal position of the book so that you can grab it as quickly as possible, no matter which book you're interested in, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like a simple problem, but it blows out. So if that library is easy, but if you go to an actual real world library, the complexity of the problem is such that you can't just solve it.
Absolutely, right. It is very similar to the Google. Yeah, what did Google do? Google just did the sorting,
pretty much,
and now that's all they did. And how complex it is, and look at the volumes of searches and then ordering it, right? So that's exactly the real life problem that we are talking about. So you can grow in great numbers, Lourdes.
It just explodes, and so the community tried to approach it in many different ways, and machine learning came in to help. And that was the concept there is that instead of tackling the problem at once, can we distribute the problem across many different independent actors that act as intelligent, essentially, beings? They make decisions, they try different books, different combinations until they collectively reach a good
outcome
solution. Yeah, a good outcome.
This is fantastic. I think, Lourdes, we started the introduction and straight away we jumped into a use case. So that's really good. That shows your passion for data. And I think the just next couple of questions, we want to get a better understanding of data from a business perspective. Okay, and try to decode data into a very simple way. So when you say data, how do you define it? And why is it so important today?
Yeah, I love that question because it's fundamental. It goes really down to grounding the concept. I think data, the way that I think about data is the result of an observation or a measurement. You look at something happening, an experiment or an event unfolding, a customer buying a product, or you designing a new product in the R&D department and having the problem of productionizing it at scale. Basically everything that happens inherently produces a trace. Now, whether we take that trace and we put it into a stream of binary information like bits on a hard drive or on the cloud, that really doesn't change the fact that when things happen and we observe them, what we're actually receiving is information in its pure form, regardless of whether it's on a hard disk or it's in the cloud or it's encoded in music. You know what I mean? Like information is something that is beyond the physical representation of the observation that we make. An example that I love to make, because sometimes it's hard to picture these things, is take a book. Imagine I open the book and I write the same word all over the pages. That book will have very little information, because once you know the first word, you know the entire book. You don't need to read 500 pages, right? You got everything you could from the first word. So that's an example where there's a lot of data, because the observation, the process of the writer expressing the ideas is long, all those types, all those keyword strikes, making up a book, but inside the book, the information content is very, very little. And so that's kind of, what the mindset of telecommunications engineers and information engineers, they try to say, let's distill what really is useful out of a bunch of data. And so you can have 1 petabyte of data, you can have the entire cloud full of ones and zeros, but if those ones and zeros don't convey a useful message, you have very little information. And so in business, it's important to find people that can stream, that can compress down, can distill the useful bits out of the mess. And so that's where my interest comes in.
So in summary, what you're saying is, it's not just the information that gets stored. It's about the imagination. It's about the vision of how each of the data is actually conveying a perspective or a meaning for a person.
Exactly. And so that's crucial, right? Because in the community, we hear a lot about insights, and it's useful to define insight as well. The way that I see it is that an insight is something that changes the way you were thinking before. So you had an understanding of a problem, and now a new evidence comes in and strongly suggests that what you had in mind is wrong. That's the moment where you go like, okay, is this because of the data is incorrect, or is this actually happening? And this is the typical question that scientists face all the time. When you're in a lab, you're trying to discover something new. You have your equipment that hopefully you can trust, because you know it, you've characterized it. Then you have an experiment running, that's your observation, and you collect data. But out of that data, then you have to extract that information bit. Have I learned something new? And if you haven't, then it's just data.
So going back to Abhi's question, Abhi was very keen to understand. He was in fact talking to me as well. How can we bring some richness in terms of what are the real life business meaning of data? So wonderful explanation of the theory, Loris. So how can we, talk about the explanation for the real life business use cases? Do you have any such examples that you would want to share?
Yeah, there's an infinite number of examples. That has always been, that is not new, right? That has been there since we started recording stuff, like from using paper or on walls and caves. So what's different today is that there is way more of it, and it changes really quickly. So it's the 3 V's of big data, velocity, veracity, and variety. So very different types of data very quickly, and so that what makes the problem an interesting one and a difficult one, especially because as the 3 V's of big data happen, they don't just happen at a theoretical level. They are a reflection of the world. The world is more complicated. Things move very quickly. We learned that unanimously through the pandemic. So the business, you can think of the way that I think it is an organism in a larger ecosystem where things change all the time, and the strategy to survive needs to change and adapt. And the more we go, as time goes by, the speed of that strategy adjustment, how quickly you need to react, increases. You have to be quicker. And so if you're thinking about a small business, and I make the example of my grandpa, when I was 12, we used to go together and I used to help him out. He was selling items of clothing. He had his truck. We would wake up at 5 a.m. We'd go set up shop, and have that human to human connection with that clientele that he established over 25 years. That's an example of a small scale business that was very successful, but didn't require any data management, because all of the knowledge was inside my grandpa's head. And that's fine. The problem is, when we scale, when we want to grow the business, we need to have systems that function as the equivalent brain that my grandpa relied on. We need that connectivity between sales, between procurement, between marketing, between operations, and hopefully be able to surface those accurate views of what's going on all the way to the CEO, so that we can collectively make better decisions.
And with COVID, all this, so there are a lot of changes that have come through, as you just said. Purely in terms of the examples that you're talking about, is there any particular standout use cases that you think is going to be vital in the next, let's say, 2021 or 2022?
Yeah, I think for instance, e-commerce is a major example. I mean, lots of businesses, because of the pandemic, realized that they could not rely on their physical presence anymore. And I'm sure they were aware of the potentials of e-commerce, but they never had the urgency of actually considering seriously to invest in e-commerce. And many now they had no other option. Like, if you want to survive, you got to move to a non-physical way of delivering your value to your customers. And so when the moment you introduce relationships, and I love the concept of of relationship centricity. The moment you think about you in respect to someone else, being a customer or a partner or an associate or a human resource, you need, at scale, you need to have that visibility. So and the only way to do it is with data. The problem is data itself can be messy, and so inevitably you need to manage those assets, those intangible digital assets.
That's true.
That's great. So, Loris, as you said that now a lot of companies are looking at e-commerce as an example, right? And especially post-COVID. Now, this is very interesting because one side, post-COVID, a lot of companies want to adopt more emerging technologies into their business. At the same time, we see that a lot of surveys says that about 80% or 70% of these projects also fail or are not able to deliver the business value which was expected out of them. Now, that makes the life of a business leader very, very difficult, right? It's like a catch-22 situation for them. So is there any particular advice that you have, or suggestions, or a checklist that can help them to make more informed decisions, or to bring clarity in terms of what their expectation should be when they are, diving into these kind of projects, and how do they measure it as well?
It's a wonderful question. And I think the answer depends slightly on the size of the business. But there are basic principles that apply throughout, right? Actually, they apply horizontally across industries. It doesn't really matter where you are, because the data problems are data problems. Now, what you do with data downstream might change. And so let me take a couple steps back. Basically, I think that there has been too much focus on the last mile of analytics in the last 10 years in particular.
Yeah.
I think that we are all responsible in different ways for fueling that hype around machine learning and so-called artificial intelligence, quote unquote. And we failed to look at the part of the iceberg that is underwater, the 90% that must happen for the last mile to succeed. And I think this is the core of the problem. While machine learning is perceived as a very revolutionary way of solving problems, and it is. I'm the first one that's super passionate about it. It's not alone by itself is useless. You need to apply it in the right context. So people that write those models need to be aware of how the business works. There's no shortcut there. That curiosity layer has to be there for any data practitioner, regardless whether you're in data management or in deep learning. You need to be aware of the actual problems to be able to provide a useful solution. Otherwise, you provide a solution that might be mind-blowing, but it might be not useful, not impacted bottom line. And sometimes, that's my belief, most of the time, you don't need deep learning, you don't need machine learning. You just need to know what the data means in the context of the business. And that's the hard part, because we can't automate that. And this part, the learning and distributing context and awareness in an organization requires the right culture, requires the right soft skills, right? The right people skills, requires the right infrastructure. And that doesn't happen unless you have the C-level unanimously understanding that this stuff matters, that we cannot just take a shortcut and get to the fancy, artificial intelligence powered bot, because that alone won't change anything in the end. It will be just a blip in the big radar, but it won't dramatically deliver the digital transformation outcome that we want. And so the 3 steps of digital transformation, if you take a step back, are at the bare minimum an understanding and awareness that we live in a siloed, in information siloed reality. So we have now heaps of choice, and that's good. Marketing has 5 or 10 MarkTech platforms they can choose from, fintech. You combine all these tools, and now, because they're not developed as part of the same offering, they speak different languages, and now the reality is most organizations have a data layer that is fragmented. And so that is the first step, realizing that we need to glue this data together. The second step is to worry about common definitions for the organization. So take those meaningful relationships and codifying them into at least 4 C's of data structure. Without a code, you can't identify what you're selling. Everything, every individual, being a policy for an insurance company or shoes for, whatever it is, there has to be a code associated to that entity that you're selling, and that should be unique. And that's the part where I think we have lots of problems. Uniqueness is hard. There's a saying that aligning columns is easy, aligning rows is hard. Analysts do it all the time. They take different data sets and then join them together. They align rows with rows to create more extended views of the problem and try to solve it. That process, if you don't have a data management program in place, a data governance framework in place, will be hard. And that's why, going back to the original question, data scientists spend a ton of time aligning those rows, asking, what was this come from? Can I trust it? How does that connect to the other thing? Which version of 5 should I use for this model?
If I'm a leader, Loris, what is your definition of, or you're a consultant, you're coming and talking to me. I'm asking you, Loris, how can we integrate and make my company digitally transformed, use all the latest of the latest AI and ML technologies so that we are market leaders? And you've got 6 months time. What would you do?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen. That's my answer right there. I know that I'm losing already a lot of customers, but I don't care. I own that. And I know that that's realistic. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen in 6 months. I'm saying this completely against my personal interest, right? But my point is not to. And I've been involved in really exciting work with completely unrealistic expectations. And it's not a nice way of working. It doesn't work for you as an individual. It puts a lot of pressure, a lot of unnecessary anxiety. And it doesn't work for the business either, because the outcome is disappointment, even when there is a success, as opposed to, right, let's look this in the bigger picture. That result was actually really, really good compared to, the reality of the industry. And those figures that you quoted, 85% of data science projects fail. That's a reality. But you'd be surprised by how skewed, how distorted the perception is at the C-level of those numbers, even in 2021. So that's the awareness bit. We need to pierce through the marketing bubble and try to look at the problem for what it is. It's not exciting. It's not going to make any VC jump from that chair and throw $100 million a year, but it's real, right? And so, depending on what you want to do, if you want to burn everything in the shortest amount of time possible, and that's success for you, regardless of the outcome, then sure, let's go for it. Reach me, datafoundations.com.au. We can do it in 6 months. But if your plan is to build a reliable organization and empower the flow of ideas for real, and be competitive in the next 20 years, then we need to take a different approach. We need to prioritize data management.
Got it. So laying the foundation of the data, just to summarize, and then having a data governance in place, data management program, educating and understanding the different systems and how they interact are the basics and the foundations for you to start thinking about modernization and digital transformation. It's a good answer, Loris.
Yeah, I think so. It's a tough one because it requires a change of perspective, especially from CEOs, that, it's time to think holistically. It's time to connect all those dots. It's not, you can just promote marketing for their amazing new MarTech software that, increased click rate by 5%. If that breaks the connection with everything else.
Yeah,
cool.
Great insights, Loris. I think you talked today about relationship. You talked about curiosity. You talked about not looking things at silos. And be realistic about what you want to achieve out of the project, or for your expectations are correct there. So that's great. And that brings me to my next question, is around the mindset which is required. Okay. One at the organization level, and other at the business leaders or the data leaders which are there, especially for the leaders of future. There's so many moving parts right now.
Yes, and the change has to happen on many different levels. I think it also depends on what kind of leaders are we talking about. The way that I see it is there's a new wave of leaders, those that understand technology, and that they might not be deep into the technical details, but they understand the problems. They follow the industry. They listen to podcasts. And so for those folks, they have an advantage objectively, right? They don't have to change completely their mentality. They just have to think more holistically. They have to worry about the connectivity of the different domains in the business more than the individual sprint of one of them. At the data layer, because I'm sure CEOs already do it, in their meetings with their C-suite. But at the data layer, are we doing enough? And that part is problematic for a number of reasons. Because if the organization is fairly horizontal and people are free to talk to each other, and there's a lot of communication between departments, that's already a huge advantage. You're starting from a rock solid bottom, and you can build from there. Because all of that, understanding the fragmentation means building the picture at the data layer. And the only way you can do that is by having a free flow of information between departments. No one should, build a rose-colored picture of reality, because the moment you're distorting that, you're essentially making a disfavor to everyone else. So in terms of culture, that bit is really, really important. And that comes from the top, right? It's the CEO is the director of the company that leads that way of thinking. People need to feel safe to look at reality for what it is and openly discuss how can we actually improve this. But if the culture is there and the vision is there, then what can you do? And I think the first step is to hire somebody, whether it's a consultant or someone full-time, somebody new to the organization that can bring an unbiased sort of point of view on the data systems and can ask questions. And is really like the champion of question asking. Because what we tend to do, and this is I think the evolutionary speaking, we evolved to abstract and stop questioning the obvious, because we need to focus on, the house is on fire. We need to extinguish the fire. We can't start worrying about why is the paint white. The house is on fire, right? So evolutionary speaking, this system, this ability of neglecting the old information and assuming it right is something extremely good. But in the context of a fast evolving market with a fast moving pieces in a large organization, we need to stop. I think we need to stop and question, why do we use that system? Why is that connected the way it is? Because band-aid solutions are everywhere, especially in large organizations. We keep fixing, the small little thing because we don't feel that we have agency. We don't feel we can actually make an impact or lead change as individuals. And that might be true. And that's why the external viewpoint can help break that spell, because somebody can just ask bluntly, why the hell are we doing that? And, sometimes people in the room go like, we haven't thought about it. We've always been doing it that way. So when you feel safe to ask questions and question the obvious, then I think you can really gain an insight.
The next question is purely for the audience and their mindset. If I am a graduate coming out of the university, what are the different career opportunities that I'm looking at when it comes to data? They've got tons of roles: the data engineers, the data analyst, the data architect, and whatnot. And secondly, if I'm an experienced professional, what are the different areas where that I can actually look at? And I'm more, I'm a passionate in terms of getting the product ownership, and that's the role that I play as well. So is there any other career opportunities that one can think about? So answer it in two ways: one, an entry level, and two, an experienced professional perspective.
Yeah, I think for entry levels, they're in trouble. I'm not obviously happy about the state of things. I think there's a huge opportunity if you change slightly your perspective. We have this massive amount of graduates coming out of courses on artificial intelligence or machine learning, expecting to add value to an organization straight away. And every single one of them slams against an invisible wall, like a glass, almost a glass windshield on a highway, because they've been depicted, a picture has been depicted for them that is very different from reality. So that is a huge challenge. What can you do as a graduate? Well, if you're aware of this, because again, you seek information from many different points and you know enough about the industry, if you feel the frustration of data practitioners, then try to break that spell yourself. Like, be proactive, engage with leaders, particularly on LinkedIn. It's a wonderful community. It really is blowing me away. People that reach out and go like, oh, we should have a chat. You meet and you learn a new perspective, a new way of thinking that you didn't think about before. So that element of connectivity, networking, not so much to increase the volume of potential connections, but networking to actually learn about somebody that is doing the thing on the field for real, and asking them, what are your pain points? What would you suggest? What would you do differently if you could if you could go 3 years back? And people are incredibly open to that question. So that curiosity element, again, I think is the main driver for new ones. For established leaders, experienced leaders, what can they do? They can try to upskill, in the sense of not just Coursera, the new course on deep learning, but upskill in the sense of following what leaders in the data space are doing. And I found, again, that there's so many brilliant people, especially consultants, small boutique consultancies that have training courses. One that comes to mind is George Firkan with his Lights on Data. He publishes a lot of short videos and he has a course on data governance. Another one is Nicola Ashcombe in the UK. She's doing a lot of work on data governance, and I'll be speaking with her this next week. Excellent, like exceptionally talented person with 20 years of experience, very, very humble and very open to connect. Those people, I think, will give you way more leverage and actual tangible skills that you can apply in a real context, as opposed to just, piling up a bunch of certificates. You've completed this, I've got that certification, I've got that AWS thing, I've got that Google GCP. I mean, it's a bit of a waste of time from my perspective. But
that's a very honest answer. Well done, Loris.
Yeah, I hope it helps.
That brings to our last question, Loris. How can people reach out to you?
LinkedIn, for sure. Yeah, happy to connect with anyone out there. Obviously, the podcast is hosted on my website, datafoundations.com.au/the data project. And you can follow me pretty much everywhere that catches podcasts. So I think I'm on Amazon Alexa too, which is, I don't know how that happened. It's my podcast hosting platform, but it's everywhere. The Data Project.
Really. Thanks for being with us today, Loris. So that's one final thoughts on inspiring ideas and any takeaway from this episode for the audience.
Be curious as much as possible. Also careful with too much curiosity because it can be overwhelming. So I think curious in a way of being smart about it. Like, ask questions to people that you feel they have a more experience than you, and that will inevitably lead you to cut through the noise much faster and quicker than if you just have to sit and Google stuff all the time.
Thank you for being with us today.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.